Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. I hope you guys are having a fantastic start to your day. It is cloudy in Vancouver. I feel like a little weather forecaster. But I'm really excited to talk about the product side of business because a lot of you guys have been asking me a little bit more about this part aside from services. So yesterday we covered services, and on Monday we had talked a little bit about how I shifted from hobby to a business, a calligraphy business. So thank you guys so much for joining in, and if you have any questions at all, feel free to just pop in a comment in there. I'll do my best to answer it, and if I can't, that's all right as well, and I will hopefully get to your question in a DM instead. So just a little disclaimer, this week I am talking about my Calligraphy Business Kickstarter course. Honestly, I just posted about this today. The Calligraphy Business Kickstarter is like my cream of the crop project, or this is my life's work in there. It's just pretty much like all the things I think about when I'm running a business, I put it all in there, like my secrets and like my plans. And it's also probably my most favorite course to teach because I'm just so passionate about business. I love being an entrepreneur. If I wasn't a calligrapher doing this business, I'm sure I would have figured out a different kind of business at some point in time. And with this kind of experience, like going through all sorts of different kinds of business models, the product business is kind of where I am currently growing a lot. But I will say that it is not for the faint-hearted. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today, to kind of dive deeper into it. But the Calligraphy Business Kickstarter is a course that is really, really good, that details all the steps you need to launch your business from beginning, and also, of course, like have it like running really well. It's made by a calligrapher for calligraphers, and it's a combination course that's got pre-recorded video, so you can take it anytime. But we do kind of generally want you guys to take it within the first 6 weeks, because we have live coaching sessions at week 2, week 4, and week 6 to help you get your questions answered. We find that sometimes if we don't have a time frame for our courses, people tend to take forever to take them. So that's why we wanted to also like make sure everybody takes it within this first 6 weeks. It's because in about 2 months' time, baby girl is coming out, and so I won't be able to be present in the live sessions. That's why this is our final enrollment for the year, so I hope you guys can join us. So many you guys are coming in. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I wasn't able to like wave at everybody, but hi Danny, thanks for joining. I love seeing some of my students join in my courses as well, like from beginner, to intermediate, to learning how to do invitations, and then now like starting their business. But this product business, though, there's lots of kinds of calligraphy products. That's the fun part about being an artist, is that there's millions of things that we could possibly offer in terms of the product. It's definitely not, I will say, the easiest path to growing a business, especially because sometimes there's some more capital involved in comparison to a service-based business. So yesterday I talked specifically about the wedding invitation, wedding services, and kind of like the pros and cons around that. Because that's what a lot of people offer as a calligraphy business, right? Especially right at the get-go, because it is true, like the wedding industry is, quite prolific, and especially now that COVID is kind of like tapering over, we're seeing a lot more people like continue with their weddings. So there's a good market for it, and it's also, where a lot of people tend to feel that they have the budget to spend for it. So in comparison to, say, like a kid's birthday party, right? Like the budget is like thousand times more than just for your for that piece for your wedding. So there's like differences in that. Then you want to consider that too when you are thinking about your business model. But if you are planning to do a product-based business, here are some tips that I would think about. Well, first is choosing a product that aligns with your brand, because yesterday I was like emphasizing how important it is to have a strong brand presence, as from even that just means from your aesthetic and how people perceive you, because that really help. Whatever you produce is what people will, and that what you show on your marketing, on your portfolio, and these are the things that people are going to resonate with, and these are the things that they're going to think that you can make. And so with the product-based business, you definitely want it to be related to what you that's related to your brand, and also related to what your strengths are. The last thing you want is to offer a product business that like a product that you're not really passionate about doing, and the fact is that it's not really even aligned with your brand. But another caveat though with the products business is that you also really want to understand your clientele and like look at their experience from beginning to end. Yesterday I talked a little bit about this too, like interviewing brides, for example, and like kind of understanding how their path is, what are their like concerns, how do you mitigate that. When you start a business, it's no longer about just what you want to create, it's about what people will resonate with, because without people, no one's gonna buy your product, and it'll be hard for when that happens, right? Like when you launch all these products, and this is something that I've had to learn the hard way with launching products. When I was starting out in my career, I also started like a little Etsy shop and had like a slew of products that I had. But I didn't and this was all just because, oh yeah, I think people would like that. And then I'll just put it on, post it on Etsy, hope somebody would buy it. But I didn't really quite realize or didn't really quite look at the customer journey, right? The customer experience, like what do they actually need? Or like what are they looking for? Because even those things that they're looking for would really help shape the way you name your product. Especially, for example, on Etsy. You probably, if you've ever shopped on Etsy, you'll notice that the product line of Etsy is very, very long. Like so many people have like so many slashes in their thing, like best birthday, for example, it's like personalized keychain, best gift idea for kids, idea for Father's Day, or I don't know. There's always so many little things to it. That's like part of their SEO, because that's just Etsy, but that's like part of kind of how it is. And that's why I actually talk about this a little bit in the course too, where I talk about naming, how you name your products, because I personally love being able to name things pretty, but most of the time if people can't pronounce it or can't understand what in the world it is, then it's very difficult for them to be able to buy it. So that's why it's so important to be able to explain what the product is, like very easily, and that you are actually solving their problem. Like when you come to them as a product-based business, you want to be like you're solving their problem, you're making their life easier, for example, or like they can't make it, so you can do it. So that's kind of like, I want you really to like shift your mindset there and not just do what you like making or making pretty things, because I'm so guilty of that. I've been at that part where like, yeah, I just want to make it because it looks pretty. No, if nobody's gonna buy it, then yeah, it'll be hard. Another thing I also want to talk to you about is that when you think about a product-based business, is customer lifetime journey, because the journey of a client doesn't end with just one purchase. Like what you want and and this is where I am still like growing, and that's what I'm trying to do, is that I'm trying to understand my customer's life cycle. Like, what do they need? I mean, ideally, you want a customer to keep coming back to purchase and to also tell other people about your stuff, and share about it, for example, and things like that. Like, you want them to continuously come back to you. And that means that either you have a product that's consumable and that needs to come back, that they need to come back into, or that there's the next level to it, or that you keep releasing new products. So depending on when you come into a product line of business, like, you have to think about, like, okay, I'm going to sell everything in this one piece. Great. But then now, what if people run out of this thing? Or like run out of this thing? Or like, would they ever run out? What if this was like a one-stop solution and never ever have to buy again? That's not a good idea, because you want them to be able to come back to purchase another item, or tell other people about it, or incentivize them to be able to tell other people about it. Actually, that's one piece that I'm still currently working on, having some kind of like referral program, or where they get points, or like loyalty programs, like things like this, because now that my product line is growing, I'm seeing a lot more repeat customers. And generally you'd want to have, around a 80-20 mix, 80% new customers, 20% return customers. That's healthy, because you don't want them to be like one-time purchase, never ever come back. You want at least 1 out of the 4 people would come back to you and like be able to see, and be part of, and come back and be loyal. That way, and this is actually kind of funny, because every single time I have a product launch, I literally have at least like this 5 people that I know of, that I recognize by their names and addresses, that I know they're gonna buy, or that if they don't, I reach out to them. And that's also part of the customer experience too, right? Like, being able to follow up and ensuring a good customer experience. I will say that it is definitely harder as a small business to maintain a super high level of customer service sometimes, because of the fact that sometimes that means that we have to take the risk, right? We're not like Amazon or Costco, or all these other businesses that take returns like crazy. In fact, my return policy is not even friendly. And the reason there is just because it costs so much to return. I live in Canada, for example, and shipping here is extraordinarily expensive. And especially because, 75% of my clientele is in the States. So for them to return to me costs a lot. For me to ship to them costs a lot. And so shipping things back and forth, especially for returns, it's just hard. But you want to think about that too, right, in the process. But thankfully, we're a small business, and most people are a little bit more friendly with that. I tell people to just keep it. If that's really the case, rather than returning it, because returning just costs way more money. But yeah, so when you think about like starting a product business, as I mentioned, think about not just your brand aesthetic, but also think about your customer lifetime journey, and also what they're looking for, like what they're actually needing, because this really helps shape the product line. And then the third thing I want you to really consider if you're planning to think of doing a calligraphy product business is the logistics and operations side of the business. Because personally, for myself, for my experience, I've had this whole slew of different kinds of products. I've had products where that is very custom. Okay, so the custom ones are the hardest ones to do in terms of labor on your end, but in terms of cost, not so much. It's just like very time consuming, because you have to do things one by one, and sometimes it requires a lot of back and forth with the client, and there's also sometimes the risk of the client being unhappy with it. But in terms of like capital investment, it's on the low side. That's where I started with my Etsy. I started making like custom signage for people, like handwritten ones. And I know a lot of people do this now on Etsy, like have like, place cards and envelope addressing and all that kind of stuff. Then you've also got those products that you don't need to ship. So I personally think those are the genius products because anytime you don't have to ship, like digital products, I mean, are fantastic. But of course, there's also always a risk with that and involved where, sometimes people purchase one file and then they forward it to another person or they edit it and then now they claim it as their own or something like that. I've even had somebody, take some of my practice drills and rebrand it and then use it themselves. And I'm just like, you're a calligrapher. Why do you need my stuff to do your stuff? So I'm like really confused. But digital products though are great. The only downside is that a lot of people do it. So for you the marketing side then needs to really bump it up, really go up, but at least you don't have the overhead. You don't have to deal with shipping. You don't need to deal with packing and all that kind of stuff. And then of course, there's also the actual product creation, which is what I do, where I develop new products. I get it made or make them myself. And then we pack it and we ship it. So this part is definitely, I would say, the most intensive, most hardworking. I'm like, sometimes when I think about it, I'm like, why am I doing this? Because product business is hard. Okay, in some ways, a lot of people think that it's great because it's scalable, and that's what it is. A product business is more scalable than a service business generally, because in a service business, you are the main person doing it. And in fact, like if you're like a control freak like me, it's hard to let go of that service to other people. It's unlike other things where you can assign people to do it. So for example, like a wedding planner can have other people sustain and like do logistics for them. Whereas for a service, like when I'm addressing the envelopes, I'm the only one that I trust to do the envelopes myself because it's my calligraphy style. I don't think anybody in my team can replicate it to the extent that I want it to be. So for that service alone, I can't replicate myself. So I can only do whatever the time I can make. And when I do it on that particular time, I can't make any more money from that particular moment. Unless of course maybe I go live on TikTok and people gift me stuff or something. I don't know. I haven't done that because I still don't have 1,000 followers on TikTok. Struggle. But yeah. But with a product business though, you could like once you've created a product, like what I've done, I have a team of people that help me ship it. So I no longer deal with shipping because I really, really suck at it. This is where delegation works. It's like you are able to let go of things that you don't like to do or you're not great at, and that other people can do it. And that way you can save the time in your business to do other things. But I will say that this type of product business though is definitely probably the hardest one to make because it involves a lot of capital. There's a lot of moving costs because there's like the shipping, there's inventory maintenance, there's things getting to you, things leaving you, things getting damaged at some point. There's packaging, there's the shipping packaging. There's a lot of costs involved, and it's just different from just making one item ad hoc, right? So there's a lot of like pros and cons, and I would say like for this particular product business, like what I have, I will say like this one is something I would recommend to people if they've already established a strong brand, because and that's the experience I have also seen across some of my other businesses, because what I've noticed that is if people don't recognize that brand, people might not trust it to purchase from it. It's different from like getting something custom made. Getting custom made, all they need is a few photos on Etsy and they could purchase it. But if it has to do with like something that they want to write, like online courses, for example, or like the continuous purchasing of products, especially for a niche industry that we are in, which is calligraphy, if people don't recognize your brand, they won't want to buy it. You think about it, right? Like think about like Tiffany and Company, or like if you go into the outlet stores, like you see all these people lining up to these stores. You don't think that those bags are necessarily much better than bags that you can buy elsewhere. The quality is not that different, to be honest, but people buy the premium price for those because of the brand and the marketing. Well, their marketing has made their brand elevated enough for them to get that price. So it's definitely harder to get to that state, I will say. And that's why when I recently had a podcast interview with the luxury creative, and we talked a lot about this, because it helps to have some kind of following before you launch some kind of product like this, where you invest capital into developing new products, because the loyalty, the following, people want to purchase what you have, takes time to develop. So that's why a lot of people end up doing services first, because services is easy. There's very, very low capital to start your business with, right? Like you literally, yourself is the cost. Except of course some other items. Hey Nyoko, thanks for joining. And so that's why it's really difficult, I think, like sometimes to make that shift if you wanted to, or perhaps. But the good thing is though with products is that you can always test it, and that's the fun part about it. And that's why sometimes you see me run polls with you guys. I actually go ahead and interview some of you to really talk a lot more about this side of the product side of the business. I test my products like nonstop to make sure that it's really what you guys are looking for. There's going to be mistakes, and that's part of running a business. I personally have made mistakes running in a business, no matter how long you've been in it. And that's why there's so many case studies, right, of like really successful businesses that have failed, or like have just not been able to keep up with the times, and because like both the service and the product space is a volatile place, like and that's why when I mentioned earlier today as well, like starting a business is not for everybody. So I know I'm running this course. I'm encouraging you guys to enroll, but if you are not ready, or if you don't want to shift your hobby to a business, you don't have to. I don't want you guys to feel the pressure that, oh yeah, it's a great hobby, I should make it into a business. No, not necessarily. When you shift your hobby to a business, it's different. You lose that hobby. It no longer becomes your like release as much as it was before, I would say, because now you are doing it for your customers and it's no longer about yourself. And there's so much more stuff that you end up doing than calligraphy. Even for today, for example, this whole I want to say I usually work around 8 to 9 hours in a day, and in that span of time I probably write calligraphy about half an hour. Just because that's just not my business model right now anymore. I don't hand address envelopes all the time, or I don't do custom signage all the time. So I'm not writing all day, every day. No. Most of my time is spent on admin, on marketing, operations, and everything else. Or sometimes even just driving around, running around doing errands lately, because we've just rented a warehouse. So that's another thing, right? Like with a big business, now with our business growing as a product line. Before I worked off my basement room, and now we have a bigger space, and now it also means more operational costs. Right now we have the lease, we have to pay for business insurance, we have to pay for like electricity in there, and internet, alarm system, all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely a lot to take on in terms of investing, and that's why I don't think it's for everybody. But what I will say is that starting when you have your own business, even though it means that you may work more than you've ever worked in your life, it is definitely fulfilling, and it's lovely to be able to see like the customers love your products, or like people following through and like returning to purchase, or like leaving you a great review on your website. And it's possible. It's not impossible. That's what I aim to do with the course, to be honest with you, is to detail all those steps for you, sharing with you my knowledge of business that I've been in here for a while, and also my mistakes, my regrets, things that I wish I knew, or like things I wish I did, and also just because especially like with running a business, there's just so many nuances that are different from business to business. Like personally for myself, I did go to school for business. I went to university for it, and maybe the only thing I really learned from there was accounting that I could apply to everything else, and maybe how to write a business plan. But who really follows through with their business plan like to the T? No, things change all the time. And with a calligraphy business, there's just so many nuance to it. Like I don't think the schools are able to talk all about like e-commerce, or like talk about like what it is to be an artist, how to price yourself as an artist, and things like that. All right, you guys. So that's kind of like my blurb on starting a product business. I hope you guys enjoyed the session and got some tidbits from that. Tomorrow I'll come back and do another live again. And probably this time around I'll talk a little bit more about like how to like market yourself. So yeah, I'll definitely get to chat about that. So 57 Pros is just asking here, do you boost your Instagram posts, or is it all organic growth? Tomorrow, let's talk about marketing in terms of that, because I definitely know people have questions about it. And yeah, I'll hopefully you guys can join me tomorrow. I will probably go live around this time again, so I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.